goes, okay.
So welcome everyone. Wow, what a phenomenal facility we're in. This is the first time I've been in this church. So proud about it, and we'll talk about it a little bit later in my presentation. Can everyone hear me okay in the back? We're good? Okay. Okay, I'll talk a little bit louder. Is that better? Okay, here's my bio, my background. I went to St. Anne's High School in Louisville, and went to the University of Cincinnati to become an architect and some of the other things, and I am now retired as well. One of the things that I do with my history things, I help install historic markers in Louisville. I installed over 20 historic markers within the city of Louisville, and one of them is for the Sisters of Charity of Nazareth. And this one is at the school there at St. Francis of Rome, where the SCNs were teachers doing. I don't know, I know Sister Carmelita taught there. Did anyone else teach at St. Francis of Rome? Okay. There you go. So we installed this marker about 10 years ago. Just hit my thing. Sometimes it freezes up and they go in here in just a second. Sometimes for some reason, as a line gets over, hit it one more time and see if that works. Maybe not. If not, we'll have to do it manually. Hang on. Why is this not working? Keep it going. There we go. Okay, so I title slide again. Let me see if I can get it. There we go. So how this came about, I'm dedicating this presentation to Reverend Kevin McGrath. He was a Dominican at St. Rose Catholic Church, which I talked about just previously. And I got an email from him about 4 or 5 years ago asking, what did I know about William Keely? And I'm like, oh, William Keely, never heard that name before, but I've heard about Patrick Keely. Patrick Keely designed the Cathedral of the Assumption, I told him. And Kevin says, no, he did not. It was William Keely that designed the Cathedral of the Assumption. And so from then on, up until now, we've been doing research on William and Patrick Keely, who were brothers and the architects of the Catholic churches. And so I want to thank Father Kevin McGrath for putting me onto this, onto the Keely brothers. And as you can tell, he passed away in 2023 of a healthcare issue. Very sad. Never got to meet him, just talked with him via email. I want to give credit to various folks for this presentation. We'll talk about Ed Fury here in just a few minutes, but Tim Toms, who's not with us today, Tim was my co-conspirator with this presentation. He's the Archdiocese archivist, and he helped me tremendously with this presentation. David Allen is an architect who worked on the Cathedral of the Assumption. Phoebe Valley Historical Society, which we'll mention later. Catholic cemeteries were very much helpful with this presentation. St. Thomas, Alex, Lumen, Jack Hopple, and of course our friends the Internet helped with this presentation as well. So Ed Fury, who was he? Well, he did a talk back in 2016, March, up in Newport, Rhode Island, called Patrick Keely's Legacy. And I use a lot of Ed Fury's information in my talk today. So here's Ed Fury. He did a lot of research on the Keely, on Patrick Keely, not so much William, but Patrick Keely did a lot of work on that. And unfortunately, Ed passed away in 2020. And that's when me and Tim really got going on the Keely brothers. And so we would send emails up to Ed Fury, but we would never get emails back. We're like, what happened? Why is he not responding? Unfortunately, he had passed away. So that was a critical link that we lost. Unfortunately, he had documented a lot of his research on the Keelys, and we're using it today. This is an Excel spreadsheet that we did to track the Keely brothers. We got a lot of information, we did a lot of research, and to document it, we did an Excel spreadsheet with dates, names, dates, where we got the information from, to try and be as accurate as we can in talking about the Keelys. So let's start at the very beginning. William Keely, K-I-E-L-Y, was born in 1805, and they were born in County Killinary is where they actually were born here, which is adjacent to Tipperary, Ireland. There you can see where Dublin is. If you've been to Dublin, you know where that's at. And then Patrick, his brother, was born just a few years later. And their father, John Keely, went to Thurles, Ireland, in County Tipperary, as a carpenter and a builder. And they helped with a number of buildings there. One of them was at St. Patrick's College, and another was a hospital there. And both Patrick and William apprenticed with their father there in County Tipperary. One of the nice connections in history was when Augustus Pugin came from England to Ireland to design several Catholic churches there. And he met up with the Keely brothers when they were there here. He designed St. Mary's Cathedral in Killinary. He designed a number of Gothic architectural churches there. But this was very fortunate that they met up with this famous English architect, Augustus Pugin. And it's, I'm not going to be again. Hang on, we'll get it going. Well, for some reason, it's not wanting to operate, but hang on, there we go. And one of the interesting things that Pugin did, he wrote a book about his architecture, his church architecture. And Patrick Keely met up with Pugin in early 1840s. They got to meet Pugin and brought his book, we believe, to America when they immigrated in the late 1840s. So that was a major connection between Patrick Keely, William Keely, and Augustus Pugin, who was a pretty well-known architect back in the mid-1800s. So here's our timeline. So when William Keely was born, Patrick, when they went to a church there in Thurles, Ireland, William married Margaret. We don't know her maiden name or when they were married, but they were married over in Ireland. And when Patrick and possibly William met with the English architect Augustus Pugin in Thurles, then in 1838, when John Keely built the St. Mary's Hospital, Pugin wrote his book, and in 1842 is when William and Patrick immigrated to America. Some more of their timeline. When they got to America, Patrick married Sarah Farmer. Good Catholic family, had 17 children. 1846. Now this was another fortuitous meeting of the Keelys. They met up with Father Sylvester Malone in Williamsburg, New York, which is a suburb of New York City. And this began a very fortuitous connection with the Keelys in the Catholic Church. One of the first churches they worked on was St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church in Louisville, New York. So here's St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church that Patrick Keely designed. Some of you may notice in the architecture there, it resembles a lot of the architecture of the Keelys. Unfortunately, it was demolished in 1957. But you can compare this to the Cathedral of the Assumption. And see how close to the design it is. Here's more information on Patrick Keely. He designed over 600 Catholic churches. Just phenomenal. Primarily in the Northeast. It says he designed every 19th century Catholic cathedral in New England. This is a census, the 1860 census for Patrick Keely, where he lived, his children's names, his wife, more information. Love the census. It's all online now. It's great to be able to Google all this information and pop up on your screen without having to go and look it up somewhere. Here is a partial list of the churches that Patrick Keely designed. You can see Arkansas, Connecticut, D.C., Illinois, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Sister Carmelita. You probably get a number of those churches up in the Boston area, Maine, Maryland. Just very prolific of all these churches that Patrick Keely was involved with. Even more. Just, you name it, he did it throughout most of the U.S. This is a church in Boston, the Church of the Most Holy Redeemer Catholic Church, Patrick Keely, 1844. And we will reference this church later in my talk. Now then, William Keely, who we're most interested in, he, for whatever reason, decided to leave the New York area and do his own traveling into the Midwest United States. He started out in northern Ohio, worked on several churches in northern Ohio. Then he moved to central Ohio and did several there. And one of the interesting ones that he worked on was St. Thomas Aquinas in Zanesville, that was a Dominican parish, and that led him into Louisville. There's the St. Thomas Aquinas, and again, we're going to reference this church later in my talk as well. Worked on this. By the way, it's listed that Patrick Keely designed that church, but me and Tim think that William actually did the project. And me and Tim go back and forth as to who actually was the architect on this. My feeling is that Patrick was the main architect and William was more the project manager. My feeling is that Patrick would send William the designs and then William would implement those. But Tim's not totally in agreement with that, but me as an architect, I can see that happening. But so this was a church that they worked on, and they were Dominican. Here was another church. You can kind of see the connection there. We get on a lot of these websites, and they don't list who the architect is, but you know someone who knew the style and the design, very similar to the cathedral. This is William and Margaret Keely's census data, where they lived, how they were, their children's names. Again, really helps out with all that information. Here in 1850, they were in Louisville, Kentucky. 1860, they were in Oldham County, Kentucky. 1870, again, they're in Oldham County, Kentucky. We'll address that in just a second. So, William ended up in Louisville, and so between 1850 and 1860, they moved out to Pee Wee Valley, which is in Oldham County, just across the Jefferson County line. So my question is, why would they have moved from Louisville out to the Louisville outskirts there in Pee Wee Valley? Why would they have done that? Bloody Monday happened in 1855, anyone in the Catholic faith. Most of you have heard of Bloody Monday. It was an anti-immigrant, anti-Irish, anti-German, and anti-Catholic riot in Louisville where over 20 people were killed. And they primarily, the nativists, as they were called, attacked two primary churches in Louisville, the Cathedral of the Assumption and St. Martin de Tours. They attacked. And that really threatened William Keely. I'll explain in just a second about that. So the Keelys moved out to Oldham County. They bought a farm, just, if you know where St. Aloysius is there in Oldham County, Pee Wee Valley. Their farm was right behind them, right in this area here. There's a farmhouse there now, but that is not the Keely house. The Keely house actually burned, I think, in 1899. It says here 1899, the house actually burned, so it's no longer there. And St. Aloysius was not here either. They moved out to Pee Wee Valley in 1911. So one of me and Tim's early thoughts is that they moved out next to St. Aloysius, but they did not. St. Aloysius was not here when the Keelys lived here. And one of the other interesting things, if you're familiar with Pee Wee Valley, they had that railroad that runs along the Range Road there. And so that's how he another church that William Keely was involved with, the St. John's Catholic Church. They're near downtown Louisville. It's very beautiful. It's now a homeless men's shelter, I believe. Of course, St. Rose Catholic Church over in Springfield, where Kevin McGrath was. He was just wanting to know, he had heard that William Keely designed his church, and he contacted me. What did I know about it? I did not know. And through his assistance, we were able to document all of this. He also did St. Therese there in Rodelia, Kentucky, a church there. And your church here is St. Vincent de Paul, Nazareth. It even talks about the architect William Keely on your website to get that information. So how did he get out here? So we know he was in Louisville, we know he was in Owen County. How did he get out to Nazareth to design this church here, this magnificent church? Well, I think he and other captains all knew each other. They lived about the same time period, and I'm sure she was very familiar with all the churches being built in the Louisville area by William Keely. And I'm sure she said, hey, can you do one of these out for me out in Nazareth? So I'm going to put that connection together. That's just my theory, but I'm pretty certain that's probably what happened. He also worked on the Abbey of Our Lady of Gethsemane. I was always very dubious about this, whether or not he actually was involved or not, even though the website, everyone said that he was involved out there. But so it's been so modified over the years, it's very difficult to understand what exactly Keely did until you look at what the original design was versus what it looks like today. Now, Vatican II, I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that, but they've changed a lot of the interiors of the churches back in the day. And of course, the Cathedral of the Assumption. And here they put up a historic marker there, mentioned about William Keely, talking about his history of the cathedral. Some images here, a drawing of the spire there at the cathedral, an early design of the cathedral, and what it looks like today. I'm sure everyone here has been inside the cathedral. It's this phenomenon that they were able to restore it over the last 25 or so years. Just spectacular interior space. I'm sure you were like me, are always looking at the ceiling when you get into the cathedral. It's just all inspiring space. By the way, the windows have been restored back to what their original condition was. And when you go there, you note that the windows are primarily clear that you can actually see outside, whereas here at this church you have stained glass. And from what we understand, that was how it was designed originally, was that you had clear windows, not stained glass. So it was William Keely. So those are the churches that we have been able to thoroughly document were involved with William Keely. So my question is, what about all the other churches that were built in the same time period in the Louisville area? Were they also involved with William Keely? So one of the ones a lot of us have always speculated on, who was the architect of St. Martin de Tours? So this is what St. Martin de Tours looks like today, and that's what it looked like when it was originally built. This stone facade was added in the early 1900s, but this was what it would look like in 1853 when it was built. So, we have St. Martin de Tours, and we have St. Rose Catholic Church, and you look at it and you say, well, how do you compare those two? Let's look at this. St. Martin de Tours, St. Rose. I took off the spire of St. Rose, or St. Martin de Tours. similar. They have the hexagon spire, six-sided spire. Both of them have that. The little pointed tops here, the spires. So to me, definitely William Keely was involved in the design of this church. Here's a comparison of the interiors. Another church that I've always speculated on, who designed this, was Immaculate Conception Catholic Church, known as also as St. Mary's, down on 8th Street in Louisville. Very spectacular church. It was built, originally built in 1849, but it was greatly enlarged in 1855. And the steeple was added in 1887, so it really didn't look like this when it was originally built. So let's look at, there's an Immaculate Conception, the cathedral, and St. Peter and Paul in New York. So to me, definitely William Keely was involved in all three. Definitely an Immaculate Conception Church as well. St. Louis Bertrand Church, there in the old Louisville area of the city. And there's St. Louis Bertrand. This is that Church of the Holy Redeemer in Boston. If you look at that, you can kind of see, well, there's somewhat resemblance there. Let's flip them around and look at it and see how close they are. So to me, I think William Keely was also involved in the design of these churches as well. Even though there's another architect listed for St. Louis Bertrand, I think Keely actually was involved. And also, this is a Dominican church as well. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think that's Dominican. Again, the Dominicans were very good patrons of the Keelys. St. Patrick's Church, and also in Louisville. It was built in 1853 to 1862. Market Street in Louisville, 13th and Market. Again, very similar. The steeple was added later. This church is over in Frankfort, Kentucky, and again, it's very similar in design to the cathedral. Even though it's listed as Isaiah Rogers of Cincinnati was involved with that. I think Keely was involved in this. Now, Keely and Isaiah Rogers were involved in a number of the churches in Ohio as well. And so either Rogers took Keely's design and built the Frankfort church, or he had Keely involved with this. St. James in Elizabethtown. The original church right there, built in 1851. And this is St. Thomas Aquinas in Zanesville that Keely did. You might be able to, that's only the best photograph I have of it. It's kind of blurred there. You can see it's pretty similar in the design. So here's the timeline of William Keely when he was working in Ohio in the late 1840s. Then he was in Louisville by 1849. Listed in the census in 1850. We think perhaps St. James in Elizabethtown, the Cathedral of Assumption, St. Rose, Yosemite, 1852. St. Vincent de Paul here in 1854. More churches here in 1855. William passed away in 1876 at the age of 71. Margaret passed away in 1883. Patrick died in 1896 at the age of 80. And then in 1899, William and Margaret's home in Pee Wee Valley was destroyed by fire. So now, me being an architect this morning, me and Tim were like, okay, William Keely was here. But where is he? Where was he buried at? You know, we all know that he was actually here, so where might he and Margaret been buried? So the first thing we looked was St. Aloysius Cemetery there in Pee Wee Valley. And there are several Keelys buried here. Here are, these are, let me see, William and Mary Keely's son Daniel is there, and then Daniel Keely's wife, and then one of their grandsons is buried there also in that cemetery. But again, St. Aloysius didn't move to Keely Valley until the early 1900s. So, we know that William and Margaret were not there, so where else might they be? So we started looking at the Catholic cemeteries in the area, and there are a lot of Keelys buried in the various cemeteries here in the Louisville area, primarily Calvary and St. Louis, which is the Irish cemetery in Louisville. But there were no William and there was William listed here, that's not the right one. But William and Margaret do not show up on any of the Catholic cemetery information. Okay, frozen again. Get that moving again. That's good. Hang on, it has a line that's on the times. This is just a record of burials. It's down there, just a second. This is when the machine catches up with me. There we go. Oh, go back. There we go. So Tim, for whatever reason, he got a little inspiration. He was doing some research at the University of Louisville Archives. And he noted that in Sam Thomas's history book of Louisville architecture, that he mentions William Keely in his notes that Sam used. And Tim, out of the blue, says, I'm just going to go over and look through Sam Thomas's information, his archives there. Sam passed away in 2012, so we couldn't call him up, unfortunately. But Tim took it as you go over and look at Sam Thomas archives at UL, and just started looking at all the folders that Sam had done, and this was in one of the folders. And Tim immediately realized that this is a burial record here. Shows exactly there's Keelys in Keely, Margaret Keely, 1883, and this one plot at St. Louis Cemetery. I'm like, oh, geez, hello, bells are starting to go off, the antenna go up. There's something going on here. And so Tim went back to the Catholic cemetery and said, hey, we think the Keelys buried at St. Louis Cemetery. And they went back into their archives and dug through their booklets there, and they were able to find that Margaret Keely was buried there. It's listed there, so they were actually at St. Louis Cemetery in Louisville. More information. This is and one of the things they kind of do, they listed Keely with an M. Unfortunately, whoever was transcribing it didn't put W, they put an M, so that kind of threw us off a little bit. But both William and Margaret were at St. Louis Cemetery. But now exactly where were they at? Me and Tim have been all over St. Louis Cemetery. We don't recall seeing any Keely headstones there. So, with the help of Catholic cemeteries, we were able to plot out exactly where we think William and Margaret were at. Right in this location here. We go out there, there's no headstones for the Keelys. And you can see here we are. This is my friend Jack Cobble. This is Tim right here. And we had probes. We had these metal iron things that we stick down into the ground to find out. A lot of times, headstones recede below the earth. And so we know that the Keelys are in this general area, but do they have a headstone? Did their headstone sink below the earth? And so we probed all over. We could not find a headstone at all there. So, we know that Patrick Keely was buried up in the New York area, in Brooklyn, Holy Cross Cemetery in Brooklyn. That's his headstone there. So Patrick has a headstone, but William and Margaret do not have a headstone. And so we think we need to do a headstone for William and Margaret. And so we're, you don't need to donate today, but we're doing a donation effort to raise funds to create a headstone for William in St. Louis. And thanks for attending. So that's, hopefully you can get the full history there of William and Margaret, but if you have any questions, let me know. Yes?
Did they have apprentices?
Did they have apprentices? I'm certain that Patrick did up in New York. In fact, Patrick had a huge office. They were turning out so many churches a year that he had a big office up there. But to my knowledge, William did not. And that's one reason why I think that Patrick did the designs and sent them here to William so that he could build them here. So that's a good question, because William did not have the staff that Patrick did to create such beautiful churches. This took a lot of time and effort to put this together. And yeah, agreed. That's a great question. I've had that one before. But yeah, to do a phenomenal facility like this, you need a lot of people to do the detail work. Yes. Other questions that you might have? Yes.
Just a guess, maybe, about Mother Catherine's connection.
Yeah.
Is that I know she was at where Prez is, and that's where she started in Louisville. But also, didn't the Sisters of Charity in Nazareth teach in the school at the cathedral?
Yes.
Yeah, Mother
Okay.
Catherine. She's
So
up
yeah,
there.
she definitely knew the connection to the cathedral.
Huh?
Yeah, she definitely remembered William through the cathedral of the Assumption. Yes. Definitely. Yeah, that has to be the connection as to why he got out here. And I'm not certain how he traveled out here. I'm always trying to think back in the day, you know, we take it for granted the ease of getting around things. But back in those days, they pretty much had a horse and buggy and railroads. Railroads came in around the early 1850s and mid-1850s. So it might have taken William a good half a day to get out to this location back in those days. If it was horse and buggy, it probably took me most of the day to get out here. Yes, way in the back.
So he designed the early church, correct?
Yes.
So who designed
The other parts of this church, that I do not know. I'm not, and I'm sure maybe one of you else here in the church may know more of the history of that. But yeah, he designed the original church. Yes, correct.
That part of the church.
correct? Right.
Good point.
That was the first church.
That's correct.
But this is still the first church.
And he designed, obviously, the edifice that's here.
Added on to it.
I know.
Yeah.
Somebody, but they didn't do that part.
No, that was
Is that right?
1994. Maybe 1994.
Yeah, it could be D.X. Murphy, another Catholic architect. He was Irish.
William Keely, I think, also designed O'Connell Hall.
Yes, he did. That's correct. He also designed O'Connell Hall. He may have done other projects here as well. Good questions. Yes.
Did he choose the post chair, and did he have them painted himself, or are they marble, actual marble?
Oh, I'm sure. Well, I'm not sure if they're actual marble. They're probably just painted to look like marble. They're probably some other stone. I doubt if they're marble. They're probably
The lower part is marble.
lower part is marble, and the upper part is not. That's one of the little tricks that architects do, is paint things that look like something else. They'll fold marble there. But that's a good point, yes.
I just like to comment, I'm from Frankfort, Kentucky, and it's interesting that he designed
The
the
church.
Church of Good Shepherd.
Yeah, any of the churches built in the 1850s, early 1860s in this area more than likely had a Keely connection.
And some kind of connection?
Any church in the 1850s or early 1860s here in the Louisville metropolitan area more than likely had a William Keely connection as far as the design was concerned. And Patrick Keely, like I said, was prolific, designing over 600 Catholic churches throughout the United States. And I want to credit Ted Furry, who I mentioned at the outset, for documenting a lot of that. If he had not done all that research, I could not be standing here today. So I really want to credit Ed Fury for what he had put together on the Keelys. Yes?
Is
Name for this type of ceiling, I know there is one, but that is beyond me. But definitely it's sort of a medieval style transit sort of arched ceiling. Yes, back in the day, yes, the Gothic revival is what it was called. Yeah, it's very awe-inspiring. And I'm sure that the design of it was different. I take it Vatican II impacted this church as well in some manner. I'm not sure. I'm not seeing any historical photographs, but I take it it also had very ornate paintings, decorative paintings within it. Yes or no, for those of you who may know what the church originally looked like. But I take it was probably more decorative than it is today. Other questions? If not, yes, one more.
You know who was involved in the proto-cathedral that was
Oh, St. Joe's Proto Cathedral, that's a good question, and I probably should look that up. To my knowledge, the Keelys were not involved in that, or else that definitely would have been well documented. But do not know who the architect for that was. More than likely, it was not from Kentucky, someone more out of state, because that's a phenomenal church, and someone with great talent did that church. The Keelys could have easily have done it, but I've not heard of that being connected to them.
How much interaction did the Keelys have with the persons, the pastors, the congregations that lived in each of these places? Or did he just come in and say, this is it?
Yeah, it was a collaborative effort. More than likely, again, with Patrick and William being connected to the hierarchy of the Catholic Church, I'm sure whoever the bishops or archbishops or whoever was heading the areas of the archdiocese at that time probably dictated what the church was going to be. More than likely, William and Patrick would present, here are 4 or 5 churches that we've designed. Do you like any of those? Do any of these fit with what you're thinking? And typically they would say, yeah, I like that church, this church. Yeah. Patrick designed, I'm not sure if you saw one image that I had, but he designed probably 50 different types of churches. And so they had a portfolio that they could go and show whoever the bishop was of the different churches, how large they could be, how much they could, the congregational size, and then I'm sure the bishop at the time said, I want this one here, and that's more than likely. So the congregation itself more than likely had no say in the design of the church. It was whoever the top person in the region was that picked that out. And William and Patrick would not have done that either. They would have just showed them a selection, or as it was with their first church, St. Peter and Paul, Patrick was collaborative with that Father Sylvester to come up with that design. They worked together to come up with that. By the way, Father Sylvester was from Ireland as well, and he was fairly young too. Patrick was about 28 years old. Father Sylvester was in his early 30s, so I'm sure they bonded with their Irish heritage. They probably spoke that dialect of Irish, and that's sort of how they came together to be good friends and design all these wonderful churches.
I was surprised and delighted that they did the church in Newburyport, Massachusetts, but that's a very strong Irish community. And I was there for several years, so it's nice that the church there and here.
And Louisville has a very strong Irish tradition, of course. And that's one thing that some people have noted. Well, St. Martin de Tours was more of a German church. And why would an Irish architect do a German church? Well, William was probably the only architect that could do something like that back in those days. The German, the Irish, all the different nationalities kind of blended together at some point.
I wonder who did St. Boniface.
St. Boniface, and there is an architect listed for that. That was done later, what's it, 1870s, 1880s, I believe. Yeah, I do not know off the top of my head. I want to say I was at D.X. Murphy Church, but yeah, that was done later. Correct. Yes, one more.
With this being such a rural area back then, with him being the architect, etc., over, he had many designs, except old drawings. Where did he get all the subcontractors and the artisans and everything to finish the
Great question. I'm glad you brought that up. I was contacted recently by a family member whose ancestor was a plasterer for this church. They're pretty much certain that they came out of Louisville to work on this church, and this descendant of the person that did the plaster work here wants to know, and if you can check your archives, if there's somewhere a listing of who the various contractors were for this church. If some, I'm not sure who's in charge of your archives here. But if you look and just see if they kept any records of who the contractors were, because we would be interested in that. Like I say, one of the descendants of whoever did the plaster work here said, when you're out there, can you ask them if they still have any of those records? But from what I understand, they used artisans out of Louisville for this church.
So they would follow him.
That is correct. Yes. And more than likely, they were all Irish as well.
Right.
But that would be a good thing for y'all to look into. I'm always being asked that. Who actually built these things? Because they're just phenomenal. We want to give them credit as well. Well, anyways, y'all had a great audience today. I want to thank y'all. And if you have any other questions, you can see me afterwards. And if anyone's interested in making a small donation to the William and Patrick Keely of William and Margaret Keely Headstone Fund, I got some flyers up here if you might be interested in that. But thank y'all very much.
Thank you.